Hello, all you hardcores out there. How are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner, the voice of hardcore boxing. We say the things that nobody dare say. Today I'm joined by my good friend Rico from London, originally Finland, and the co-founder of Porky's Corner way back in 2017. And we're still here. How you doing, Rico?
I'm very well, thank you. And 2017 takes me back to the days of you being in sheds and doing weights and videos, as I always tell on the channel. So you've come a long way, my friend.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, the first video I did were in my office at Dennis's, and I think after that I started doing them in shed and that. I wasn't really trying it first couple of years, were I really? We're a bit half and half on it. Yeah,
exactly. Anyways, what's been happening in boxing that's caught your eye?
That's caused my what?
Caught your eye, apart from the
caught my eye. I'll go through a few little things. Adi Adilipio for people, whatever it's called. The Dazone guy. I'm terrible with names. I get Cyril Regis mixed up with Dion Dublin.
Yeah.
Cyril Regis is brown bread, and so Cyril's family, I apologise, got you mixed up with Dion Dublin. But I'm terrible with names. Beta Beef, it's Biturbia in it or something.
Yeah, Biturbia, yeah, that's correct.
Right, so this Adi Olapoli Holy Toly Soli, whatever he's called, Ailey Dippo, he's works for DAZN. He's put a tweet out and he's saying that he feels sorry for Eddie Hearn that he didn't put Brook Khan on. He's employed by Eddie Hearn, so he's not going to bite the hand that feeds him, is it? I'm a little bit disappointed with Adi putting that out because I thought he were fought fans, and he looks like he's crossed over now to company man status, hasn't he? Like the rest of them. What do you think?
I think that's the tweet that you're referring to, where Bellew talked about loyalty and people getting paid on time, they should never leave, yada, yada, yada. I think we need to be clear that Eddie Hearn had all the opportunities for the last 10 years to make that fight on Sky, and he didn't. Whether the money was right or not, I mean, I don't know. But at the end of the day, he had all the opportunities to make the fight, and he clearly did well on pay-per-view, and a lot of people were into that fight. So there's nothing really to feel sorry about, especially if you think of the last 2-3 years, right? Yeah. He could have made that fight. Neither of those guys fight against top guys after they both lost to Crawford.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate, wholeheartedly. What's happened there, Rico? There we go. So, where do you think Eddie's going now? Because he's just lost another purse bid to Bricktop. The Andrade Zach Parker thing. He's lost the purse bid again. I mean, I've been banging on about it for years, and people have been saying, Parker, you're a hater. Matchroom don't win purse bids. Ask Carl Frotch if they win purse bids. Go and speak to Carl Frotch. They don't win them. They like to negotiate. They like to be in charge. Accountants by name, accountants by nature. So they've lost yet another purse bid to Bricktop. Where does this leave Eddie's credibility? Because now he's got Andrade fighting on a Bricktop show. Dylan White's allegedly supposed to be fighting on a Bricktop show against Fury. He's just lost Khan Brook. He's had them both on and off for over 10 years. Where's he heading now, Eddie?
I mean, I think the roster's quite depleted. If you look at AJ probably fighting on Sky next, Dillian White fighting on BT, you've got Andrade fighting on BT. So that leaves him essentially what Chisora is also seeing what he can get the best offer possible. So I don't really know what fights he can put on. Callum Smith possibly. There's a few other fights, but nothing of the status or like what we used to call pay-per-view level on Sky. There's none of those fights. So I think this is the decline that he's had since joining DAZN. And as I think you've spoken with Terry many times, he thought he was the secret source, but actually Sky is the secret source. Yeah. And even BT at the moment.
Yeah. Rico, I believe that we have some company house, because Eddie likes to go on about company house all the time, doesn't he? I believe we've got some data in from company house regarding DAZN's accounts. Can you elaborate on that, Rico?
I mean, look, I think we first have to be clear that the accounts are until year-end 2020, and they're quite dated because DAZN filed them very late. So it doesn't really account for DAZN coming to the UK. But what it does show is globally, DAZN have lost a lot of money. And importantly, DAZN US 40%, well, Matchroom US 40% owned by DAZN. That whole venture has been a complete failure. DAZN, their investment in boxing in the US, the high purses they paid for all sorts of fighters, whether it's Pro Gray, Mikey Garcia, others, and all the signings they've made, it's been an absolute failure on so many different levels.
Would you say DAZN is heading for Skid Row?
Look, it's a long-term thing, but maybe in terms of boxing, I'd say whatever they've invested in boxing, so not the Premier Leagues and the other sports they have rights in other countries, it's definitely headed that way. Yeah, it's not looking good for their boxing proposition. They are making the big fights. They're not attracting subscribers through boxing either.
Okay. What do you think about the rumour doing the rounds around the campfire that Derek Chisora is the plan B for Fury if Dillian Whyte pulls out? Do you think that's true?
It's probably true, but again, they don't decide. And the other thing is, I don't know where Chisora is in the rankings. So actually being high in the rankings is more important. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went with Joe Joyce. I mean, he's in-house in the same stable, and he's ranked number 2 behind Parker and Wilder, maybe number 3 behind Parker and Wilder in the WBC rankings. So Wilder won't fight Fury next. I think it's highly unlikely. Parker, I'm not sure if the interest is there. So I think the Joyce fight would make a lot more sense in the UK. So I can't see why Chisora would supercharge Parker, especially as we've seen that fight twice already.
Yeah, but this is how I look at it, right? Fury could just defend his ring belt and lineal status against Chisora and say, well, I'm going to fight Chisora, get WBC a drink, get Chisora on the cheap, have it as an homecoming, and not be paying 4 times as much for Dillian Whyte. He could get Chisora for 2 million, couldn't he?
I don't think it's that. I think it's if they book Wembley as a venue, then that's, they have to have somebody legit. And, I think they can sell the Joyce fight, he's an Olympian, all this and that. And I think what Matchroom would try to do is to pull Chisora out as late as possible so that the promotion and the numbers bomb. So that they can say Fury is not a big draw in the UK and, try and make another fight somehow. Yeah. I think essentially that's what the game is. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm still very skeptical about that fight happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Because Matchroom have lost so much over the last 6 months. Just credibility, lost purse bids, big fights. I mean, I haven't seen decline like this in boxing in ages. And also you have Probellum / MTK, the great stable. So I think with that in mind, what they have to do in order to grow in boxing is sometimes to sabotage the competition. And Eddie did that, right? When Eddie was growing in boxing, he was sabotaging Frank Warren constantly. Now the shoe's on the other foot, and actually Frank Warren's doing the same.
Yeah, I see. That's exactly right. Do you see a stat card on this Whyte Fury showdown at Wembley, or do you see just them not putting much on, on undercard?
I mean, look, it's going to be a big pay-per-view event in the UK. It does take place, so I think Frank would showcase a lot of his guys, and I imagine Top Rank would supplement some of the cost and everything else. So I genuinely think that he'll want to get a lot of these guys out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Anthony Yard on it, and you would probably see maybe Joe Joyce if he's available for the undercard, or Daniel Dubois fighting on it. So I think it's a good showcase for a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people aren't familiar with these BT guys and the BT product as much as they are with the likes of Conor Ben or, you know, something like that. So seeing some of these guys, it will be a one-sided card. So it will be a showcase for the like of Dubois and Joyce and others.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Rico, I watched a good film last night. You know, the Thomas Crown Affair, 1968, Steve McQueen.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Have you seen it? The Pierce Brosnan did a remake of it, didn't he, in the 90s? I thought it was good. Okay, let's talk about Johnny Fisher. Do you think it's going down the Dave Allen route kind of thing now? This like bit of a comedy element and eating Chinese food and bosh, and it's all a bit of a laugh on that, because a couple of my mates went to that show, and when he were coming out, everybody was like, "Oh, Johnny's coming out! Hey, Johnny's dancing." Do you think it's getting off they're not taking it serious? It's all a bit of a comedy element to it, a bit like the Babbi kind of thing, you know, like the light-hearted entertainment, and it's not serious. What do you think?
I think you know this better than I do, that Matchroom are all about building characters, aren't they? So they're building characters for the casual market. And unfortunately, I don't think Johnny Fisher is the most gifted of boxers. So I don't see people backing him because he's going to be propelled to a world title shot in 2 years. So I think what they're trying to do is to essentially create content that casuals find funny and then they tune into watching. But it's all desperation, right? If you have a very strong boxing stable, then you're not pushing guys like Johnny Fisher because they'll be fighting low down on the undercard. But Johnny Fisher's probably in the top 10 names, not talents, but names Matchroom has in their roster that could fight in the next 6 months on the zone. Yeah.
Okay. Dave Allen's come out and he said that somebody asked him what he's going to do next, and if he's going to remain loyal to blah blah blah. And he said he's going to remain loyal to himself and do what's best for his career. In other words, I think Dave's still a bit sore from what happened with Matchroom and Dubois and all that kind of thing, because he was promised. Eddie said he'd match that money, didn't
he? I think hoping that Matchroom would offer him big money to come back and be a draw, but I think Dave would take, if there's enough money on offer, he'd take it. So I genuinely think.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, I just genuinely think he's hoping that somebody offers him money to come back. Do you think
if Bricktop offers him same money again, he'll go work with Bricktop again and not think about Eddie Hearn this time?
Yeah, I'm sure, but I mean, I think Dubois against Dave Allen's probably still interesting. It's more David Adelaide against Dave Allen. That's really the fight that maybe he'd be offered, but that wouldn't be for a lot of money. So I think its value has gone down so much over the last few years. They might do something like Alan Babbage. Matchroom might try and do like Alan Babbage versus Dave Allen kind of fight.
Yeah.
Two small heavyweights and two quote unquote characters.
Yeah. Okay then. Show at the weekend. Fraser Clark, Olympic bronze, 6'6", whatever he is, 18, 19, Clem. They've dragged a guy out at crowd. What would have happened if he'd have ended up on slab?
Well, people talk about doping in sport being a big danger. I actually think this kind of matchmaking is more dangerous in the sport of boxing. And also, it's important to remember that because of Brexit, we can't get Eastern European opponents in quick time. So the pool of talent that's available at short notice is a lot less than it used to be. And we'll actually end up having more of these type of white collar fighters turning over, fighting against Olympians and professional boxers. I think the matchmaking was appalling, but I do know he was a last minute replacement. But I think the fact that the British Boxing Board of Control allowed it, it's shameful. I'm not blaming Fraser Clark and his team because I genuinely think that they obviously had to take the fight, and you know, they're looking to have a debut to get that out of the way, and they put money and effort in training camp. So it's not their fault, but it's more the lack of ability to get somebody last minute and actually have foresight on what heavyweights could we get if the fight were to fall through.
You see, I'm a little bit worried about Max because he's 1-0 now, and
yeah,
I'm not going to say who, you know, but there's a few people have been in touch with me and said, look, are you advising Max? I said, look, Max is a mate. I'm not advising him. You know, he's doing a bit of training with Julian, and you know, we're trying to give him good advice. But the Sharks are circling if they want to get somebody to put him in with Max and give him a good idea and get their guys a win kind of thing. I understand that mentality and that concept, but if Max had got the call to go in with Fraser Clark, and Max says he would because he's a fighting man, isn't
he? Yeah.
This is how you're going to end up with a body on slab, isn't it? You know, Matt. And then when we do the inquest after, they say, who licensed Max? He said, well, board won't give him a license because he comes on Porky's corner. So he goes to Lithuania, gets one. And then he has a medical in England, 200 quid. So 100 for license, 200 for medical, forwards it, you're a professional fighter. Do you see where I'm coming from? Next minute, you're in with Fraser Clark and you're laying on slab. Do you see where I'm coming from? This is how easy it is. That's how the inquest would go down. The board would go, well, he's passed the medical. Doctors signed him off. Everybody would just walk away from it, wouldn't they? And then it's a bit like Scott Westgarth, isn't it? Everybody were upset. All them who knew him. They had Adam Smith. Yeah, let's get Eddie to have a whip round at a weigh-in for him and all that. Nobody mentions Scott Westgarth now, do they? Nobody mentions him.
No, and I think maybe the board need to look at licensing in tiers when people turn over. So if you have a certain amount of amateur bouts, then you get a certain amount, you know, you get, let's call it a 1A license. If you have less than a certain amount, you get 1B, and anything below that, you get 1C. And then what that means is that anybody that's a 1A can't fight against a 1C or, you know, 1B, at least for the first 5 fights. Because you'll weed out in the first 5 fights, like who can fight and who can't fight. Because I believe that if that guy that Fraser Clark was fighting against would have fought against, call it Nick Campbell or, you know, somebody like that, a pretty novice heavyweight, they would have lost quite comprehensively still.
Max is probably best off fighting somebody like that, Jay McFarlane, isn't he? Somebody like that on that level. Or
but you know what? But that Jay McFarlane, he's fighting for the vacant area level title in Scotland.
Oh, is he? Yeah. So he's probably...
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit of a joke, isn't he? But he's beat guys like David Howe, and you know, he's fought against opponents that have a pulse. I think how much experience Jay McFarlane has is so much more than Max in a boxing ring. Like if you think about the amount of rounds he's done or anything else.
You know that David Howe, he came to Dennis's office one day and they all walked in. Me and Michelle, Dennis there. They walked in, they've all got David Howe tracksuits on. They were in, his trainer, a seconds, strength and conditioner, and a nutrition guy and some other guy who seemed to be a mouthpiece for them all. There were about 7 of them, right, all in David Howe tracksuits. And then, have you seen him fight?
Yeah, he's not. He's a journeyman at best.
He's not a journeyman. His license took off him, hasn't
he? Isn't he fighting against Jay McFarlane or?
Is he? Oh, God, I thought he did. Did he have to go in front of the board for his license? I don't know, you see, because it's all shrouded in mystery, Rico, right? All this, if you lose so many fights.
No, you know what? You're right. I just checked the box set. He lost 5 on the trot, so his last fight was against Jay McFarlane, so he hasn't fought for 3 years. So he hasn't fought for 3 years,
yeah. So he lost 5 on trot. Board took his license. Yeah, that's what I heard. Well, I was still with Dennis when I heard he took his license off him when he lost his license. But there's people getting on Dennis's show with 20 odd losses and not a win to the name. Who's licensing them? Because if they can take David Howe's license off him, Why are they still letting these other people go on shows around here, around Doncaster and South Yorkshire, if they've got all these losses?
Well, I think the David Howe one is he got stopped 5 times in a row. I think if you get stopped too much, like you lost the Journeyman, right? They go on points, and that's the thing. If you lose on points, essentially, you a lot better. You know, you viewed better because you take less damage. But there is probably an accumulative damage that you take. If you're losing 20 times, you're taking a lot of punches. You might not get knocked out.
If you're going to points and getting licked on point. Look, if you're Norton 27 and you're going on a Dennis show, what does that mean? It means you can't fucking fight. Norton 27 Rico. If you do 27 deals with your company, that company you work for down in London, and you don't sign out, get any of them on that line, take the train, Rico, they're going to say, aren't they?
Get out of Dodge, that's what they say.
Get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Take the train. Collect your cards, kid. So I think it's one rule for one when they want to do it and one rule for other. There's no consistency with the border control. Right. We might as well start with the main event. Amir Khan against Kell Brook. I took an L. I said Amir Khan would win in round 6, but I also had a bet on a draw because I thought it looked juicy. What did you think to the fight, Rico?
I think Kell Brook was just so much fresher. And I think I said this before on social media and other platforms that it was one of those fights where Khan wanted the money, Brook wanted the win. Like Brook's legacy is defined by the win. I think Brook's mental well-being essentially is defined by the win. Like that fight was the biggest fight of Brook's career, whereas Khan thought money, you know, you'll get money and it's a big fight. And he probably thought he could win that, but essentially you could tell in the first round that Kell Brook was going to stop him, right?
Yeah. What do you think
Let's hope there's no rematch.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about Ben Shalom coming out in the Sun? I sent you a link to it last night, saying that Amir Khan's going to consider activating the rematch clause in the next 21 days. How would they sell that? And who the fucking hell in the right mind would want to pay for that? Again.
You know what they're doing? They're probably just making Eddie aware that he can't take Brook off while they're working on other stuff for Kell Brook if they want to do other stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But have you noticed how from Kell and his dad, his stepdad or whatever, saying I never work with Eddie again, blah, blah, blah. Have you noticed how everybody's all cozy again now?
That's boxing for you, mate. You know this better than I do. That is boxing. Nobody has ethics. Nobody sticks to their word.
Yeah, once you park people up, you should park them up. But I never worked that out. And Eddie Hearn doing every interview is hula hooping Kell Brook's ringer. But Kell probably likes that.
Well, he also likes it. I think, let's not forget that when they went and fought Crawford, Eddie didn't promote that fight. Even the Sean Porter fight was on a PBC show. Eddie probably hasn't made enough money from Kell, if I'm being honest. Maybe the Triple G, I don't think he did big numbers, but I think Eddie's essentially hasn't made the money. The biggest money Kell Brook has made is away from Eddie, and Eddie hasn't made the money he would have hoped for from Kell Brook.
Yeah. Do you feel that if Kell Brook takes the Eubank fight and gets beat, the Conor Benn fight won't be there for him?
No, it won't be. I mean, look, I think it will be. Conor Benn would still fight him because Conor likes nothing more than fighting faded fighters.
Faded, yeah.
And it would probably be like the biggest name on Conor Benn's record.
Do you feel that Brook should fight Ben first and then Eubank if he beats Ben? And Ben obviously has got no to lose if he gets beat because he can say it with Kell Brook and he'll come again, can't he?
Yeah, I don't personally want to see Kell Brook fight again. I like the guy's fighting style. I think he's talented, but you know, him beating Conor Benn does nothing for his career. It does something for his bank balance. And Conor Benn beating Kell Brook is all fight that leads to anywhere. And also, everybody can say, well, you know, Kell was past it.
Do you feel, Rico, that Amir Khan flattered Kell Brook and Kell Brook didn't look that spectacular himself?
I think to an extent, but you can only fight what's in front of you. So it was really hard to assess where Kell Brook is and how good he is at the moment based on the Amir Khan performance, because I think Conor Benn would have beat Amir Khan. Conor Benn would have beat Amir Khan because Amir Khan looks so, you know, past his best.
Yeah. Okay. Some lads, when they're growing up, like me, I used to have a poster of Samantha Fox on my wall, Madonna, Farrah Fawcett, people like that. Terry's got one of Natasha Jonas. So let's give Natasha Jonas some credit. She stepped up 3 weights and iced that girl, who was a good fighter, and she's now a world champion. So I'm over at moon for Natasha Jonas. I think she's the best female pundit we've got in the country. 100%. I think she's going to have a career in the media. I'd like to see her doing the Anna Woolhouse job.
I think she's one of the best pundits we have in the country, period, regardless female or male.
Regarding men and women, yeah, but she's the best female pundit we've got, isn't she, Natasha Jonas? Yeah. So good luck. She's now got that sort of tick to say she's done that, hasn't she? That a world champion. She's got the status now, former world champion, Natasha Jonas, pundit and all that. So she's going to be set up for life now. So well done to her. But what about Joe Gallagher? What's he had now? 60-odd champions across the board, 5 world champions, and he's got Butler, Paul Butler, Charlie Edwards, Mark Efron, Callum Johnson, all coming into position now. He's looking strong again, Waitrose Joe, isn't he?
Yeah, Waitrose Joe. I mean, look, he's, as Terry said on his podcast, he's one of the best trainers this country has ever produced. Probably him and Brendan Ingle stand apart, at least in the modern era as such.
Yeah.
So there's no question about his credentials as a trainer. He's out of all the current trainers in British boxing, he's the most accomplished and, you know, successful trainer. I think best trainer is a tricky term because best trainers, you can be very good for one fighter and not good for another. So I think, you know, if you look at on balance, if people are thinking about who's the best trainer in the country, you've got to say Joe Gallagher.
Yeah, okay. What do you think about the show as a whole? Because I'm hearing back it did really good numbers, the Khan Brook. What do you think of it as a whole, the commentary and stuff like that?
You know what? I went to a pub with a mate to watch the fight, and casuals were engaged, and, you know, all we really want is a good main event. I don't really care that much about the undercard. Like, if it's a good enough main event, then I'm happy. It's a fight that, you know, not meaning in terms of boxing career, but we all knew the narrative. You didn't need to really watch the build up to know it was a big fight. And isn't it surprising how many big fights have been made when Eddie Hearn's not involved? And I think British boxing regressed over the last five years or so with Eddie in the helm on Sky, and we've lost out on so many big fights, and now we're getting the big fights, and that's what fans want, and also that's what brings people to the sport.
Do you feel that Eddie doing too many rematches and trying to be like what's that in the video and all that? You should come to death row. That's what Shook Knight said, didn't he? When P were having to go at P Diddy because he wanted to be everywhere. And Eddie's a bit like P Diddy, isn't he? You know what I mean? It's too much, isn't it? We've had a Eddie Hearn overload, haven't we? Or Eddie Hills, the 4-0 Iceman from Billy Ricky. Free by way off, but no fucking footage. Do you think we've had an Eddie Hills overload this last 10 years?
We have, but that's been self-created, right? If you look at Al Heyman, he doesn't have to be in the media. He does great, he produces great cards and shows. I mean, Bob Arum, he's quite a lot these days in the media, but before he wasn't as much. But when you're always selling, if you know, it's a bit like you, Ross, right? When you used to sell cars, if you're telling every customer that every second-hand car is the greatest car ever, by the end of it, when they buy their fifth car for you, they don't know how good the car is, even if you were selling them the greatest car ever. I think Eddie's always in massive overdrive when he's selling his fights and selling his events. He's always trying to convince people that these are the best fights and, you know, the future's now and so forth. It's like he's selling, you know, he's trying to sell everything out of stock because he's worried that no new stock's going to come in.
Listen, Rico, the secret to selling cars is this: get bread and butter stuff, cheap insurance, good on fuel, really good valet, and a full MOT, and people will buy. But yeah, I see where you're coming from. But I think we've just had an Eddie overload, haven't we? I think his last 10 years just made it about him, hasn't he?
Well, it's because he hasn't delivered, right? I don't mind you being, if he wants to be on every channel going, talking his game up, but if he's actually delivering good fights, then that's one thing. But now what we have is the sales spiel, but we don't have any of the delivery.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Big Meech, they were supposed to be telling us who were going to be his trainer 3 weeks, 2 days ago. So we're Thursday today. 23 days since they said they were going to tell us who his trainer were. We're still waiting. What's the hold up, and where is Big Meech heading?
To be honest, I don't know what the hold up is, but also I don't think you don't really need to announce your new trainer, right? I'd be more interested in him actually having a fight date rather than the training announcement, because what happened, the real question is, did they activate the Usyk rematch clause, and did they, I mean, Eddie told us they did, but also what's the hold up on scheduling that fight? That's the real question, because once you have the fight date, you have to make a decision on a trainer.
Yeah.
Like what, you know, what's the hold up, right? How many months ago was that fight? 5, 6?
4. Well, he activated the rematch October the 8th to fight Usyk in the rematch. Now we're marching a few days, so what we're on today? 20. Well, so we're marching 3 or 4 days. So he's activated it nearly 5 months ago. So where's the date and venue? Why are they dragging their heels on this? I mean, he keeps having these meetings with Daniel Levy. But what are they hoping to achieve? Is that he has me? Oh, I've just spoke to Daniel Levy. Oh, I've just spoke to AJ. Listen, they're not struggling for a venue, surely. It's AJ against Usyk, a fight we all want.
Also, by the time they have the fight, there'll be no Premier League. So every Saturday is going to be free. It's all about the venue. I mean, look, it's going to take 2-3 months to promote the fight at least. So the earliest we could have it is probably May time.
Yeah.
So if they don't have it in May, they're going to have it in the second half of the year, and he'll be fighting once this year.
Yeah, you're probably right. Okay. Catterall against Taylor. I'm going to have a bet on Catterall because I always back the underdog.
I think it's going to be a one-sided win from Josh Taylor. I mean, look, Jack Catterall has a good record on paper, but his biggest win is O'Hara Davis, and even that one, he probably lost the fight. So Josh Taylor's just a different level. He's the best fighter in this country, pound for pound, no questions asked. And Jack Catterall, I don't think he's top 10 in the division personally. So, it's not going to be even close.
Yeah. Okay. Callum Smith. What's happening with Callum Smith, Rico?
Well, when you leave Joe, bad things happen to you, right?
Do you feel that Callum Smith should really just come out and say he wants to fight Babbi?
I don't know. I mean, look, I think when he goes up in weight, he's just going to lose a lot of the advantages he's always had. So I think it's important that he doesn't jump too quick. But somebody like a Joe Smith Jr. would be an interesting fight. But that's Callum Johnston hopefully gets that fight before Callum Smith. They probably waited for a soft or vacant title, aren't they?
Yeah. All right. What about Josh Warrington? What do you see happening with him next?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, what's happened since they've signed him? He's got that Kiko Martinez fight, doesn't he?
Where do you see that? Who do you see winning that?
I mean, Josh Warrington easily. Kiko Martinez is washed.
What do you think?
Kiko Martinez must have fought against Frampton, when was it, 12, 13 years ago, and we're still talking about this guy.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to Barry Awad or Kid Galahad? What do you think is going to happen to him? Because he looks like he's in wilderness now, doesn't he?
Isn't he fighting against somebody in Nottingham? I don't know who. But
on Lee Woodshow against Conlon.
Yeah, you know what? He's a hard sell for fans. He's a hard sell for boxers. They can probably get him another title shot, but if he doesn't win that time, so that will probably be it. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. He beat Jazza Dickens, as nice as a kid Jazza Dickens might be. He beat Jazza Dickens and then he got knocked out by Kiko Martinez. It's not exactly a great indictment on your career as such, winning a title that way and then losing against somebody that you were meant to beat quite easily. So it's going to be a hard sell to us to tell us that he's the second coming in the division. And, you know, he's a skillful fighter and he fights well. But when you're losing to that caliber of opponents, then I'm worried for you, right?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting moving forward. What do you think about Frank Smith at Matchroom, Rico? A lot of people are telling me that he's strutting around at these shows and he's kind of like not bossing people about, but he's kind of like trying to show a bit of authority, and he's being a bit off with certain trainers and managers and even some ex-fighters and stuff. You feel that Frank Smith at Matchroom, you know, Frank with the spots, the spotty one, not my mate Frank from Bury, Frank Smith.
No. Frank married to Emily Eubank, Frank.
Yeah, is he married, yeah?
I think he's engaged. So
well, let's pray for Emily Eubank, shall we? Where do you feel, what do you think is going to happen to him if Eddie Hearn packs in boxing? Can you see him running Matchroom? Or do you see nobody giving him any respect in boxing?
I think the latter, but also I think Eddie would never relinquish full control of Matchroom, so he'd be a bit like a puppet running the company, right? So he'd be running the company and doing the press conferences, but actually Eddie would be pulling the strings in the background, telling him what to do. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. What did you think of Bean? What do you think to Bean's performance other than that? A cacophony of noise.
He's Bean, but you know what? Compared to what they have on DAZN, I probably prefer it. So he's not great, but he's definitely better than what they have on DAZN.
What do you think to this Ben Shalom geezer, Rico? He seems to be doing more interviews than ever. I'm not feeling him, mate. Are you?
I'm not feeling. He's trying to be Eddie Hearn, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a wet gherkin, mate, isn't he?
He is, but you know what? At the end of the day, him and John Wish are putting the fights on, so I'm not going to knock the
product. All right. Johnny Wish is all right, you know.
I mean, everybody in boxing says he's a great guy, and everybody in boxing has brilliant things to say about him, probably apart from Eddie. So, I mean, I guess
he would have matched him years, John.
Well, he's Barry's guy, wasn't he?
He was for years, yeah, and obviously he went and did his own thing.
Eddie doesn't like anybody competent being around him, does he?
Bunty were at Matchroom.
Yeah.
Look. The moral of the story is this: we just want to see the fights, and look, we all know that Ben Shalom was just a puppet for them, innit? That's all. The kid who's they're gonna wheel him out and send him about here, there, and everywhere, do all leg work, and it's an hard job what he's got. But he's just a puppet. But I'm not feeling him yet in these interviews he's doing. I just can't get my head around him. But maybe we're just used to Eddie with his utter bullshit. And you know, Bean's the only man I know that can answer a question for 27 minutes, one question, and without anybody talking. You just let Bean run it. I think, yeah, we'll just go with it. And they just let Bean run, don't they?
Oh, you know what? There's another man that can do that. Chris Eubank Sr.
Oh, yeah. Christopher Livingston. Chris Eubank. Yeah. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure, Rico. I hope you
Likewise, my friend. Sorry about the technology issues.
No.
You thought I was messing you about, didn't you?
Yeah.
Based on your reaction, you were losing your rag. I was like, relax, man.
Sent you 3 links, Rico. Third time lucky, eh?
Well, exactly.
I'm off to Costa, and I'm off for the game of snooker.
You're going to play against Medley?
I'm going to play against myself. I've got no friends. I beat them all. Take all the money off them. Isn't that right, Max? No, I'll go play on my own. I'll go play on my own. No, I only play Smedley at pool. I'll go play on my own, have a couple of hours and clear my head, and then I'm going to come and do the Julian interview later. We'll get Julian on. There's, I think there's another video I've done, a road trip one. I had to go get them gloves signed, didn't I, for Clinton and Frotch. Got that done. And I think I've got Ryan coming on Sunday. Terry's coming on Sunday. I'm not doing note tomorrow. If anybody wants to come on Saturday, any of you people hiding behind an account with plenty rattle in the live chat, you're more than welcome to come on Saturday. pokercorner@mail.com. But you never come on, do you?
I'm seeing Terry tonight. We're catching up, so.
Oh, you and Terry. Are you Lacoste trainers?
Probably are. We'll have our matching Porky and Lacoste trainers, indeed.
Go on, lad. Well, listen, you boys have a good time round Croydon tonight on the piss.
Well, I think we're going towards Clapham, so we'll be there.
Clapham?
Yeah. We'll send you a video. We'll send you a video when we drunk together, all right?
All right, then. Listen, you take care, Rico. Have a great day.
My friend.
All right.
All right. Take care. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Well, that was my good pal, Rico. Good lad, Rico. Bright as a button. Yeah, that's about it, really. We'll get a cuppa. We'll knock a few balls about. We'll play with my balls. All right. Peace out.